First of all, just finding a comfortable position to sit in and looking for a posture that feels supported, obviously supported by the chair and the floor, but also feel that your legs are helping to keep you supported. I'm quite far forward on my chair, and as always, if this is comfortable for you, it's a good position, but not worth straining in your back for. And just a general feeling that you can sit without any part of your body strained. If I was leaning over here, I'd start to get a kind of an ache in the side here, and so on and so forth. So much of what we do is really about cultivating this feeling that we get in the central position. Now just rubbing your hands together, tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. Then on the other side. And go to the upper part of your chest. And as you do all of this, just sort of notice how it feels, the sensation of the tapping in each part of your body. Another part of your torso, so over the belly, quite light on your belly. And finally, the legs. Change your posture, sit back, your feet out in front. So you're just sitting back in a deck chair or some comfortable chair. And this is a good posture for getting the feel for one of the key concepts that we have in Tai Chi that sort of underlie the movements. The Chinese term is Sung, S-U-N-G. And it's the term often translated as relax, one way or another. Has a range of meanings. Relax is certainly part of it, but that's more significantly for what we're doing, things like calm in your mind is one thing. But physically, this feeling of releasing, a change from a very tight quality to something more open and softer. A yielding to the pull of gravity and just allowing gravity to move through your body. And in this posture, it's kind of more accessible, I think, because what you're sinking into here is the chair itself. We know the chair is going to support us, so we can sort of play with this idea of song a little bit and notice how it feels, and notice some of the outcomes. There might be an effect on breathing, for instance, or it's a general feeling of circulation in your body. It doesn't have to be either of those, could be anything. It could just be a feeling of releasing in tight shoulder or whatever. But just give yourself a few moments for that noticing. And there's a parallel process, I think, here of our attention again settling. So rather than what we often get, which is so our thoughts are all over the place, just leaving behind the sort of bustle, various things that are on our minds for one thing or another, and just getting in both body and mind a slightly more spacious quality develop. In the mind, that means that we're more able to recognize what's going on in our body because there's less thoughts crowding in. Physically, it means there's more space for movement. When the muscles are tight, when your body's tight, like wearing a tight pair of shoes or something like that, you can't move your toes around. but with that releasing feeling, lots of things will start to just naturally improve. Anything that requires movement, like breathing, circulation, digestion, and so on. So these are all things to try and reproduce coming back to the upright position. Think about the alignment in your body. So if you look there, so a fairly straight line from shoulders down to my hips, out to my knees and down to my feet. No one's coming around with a ruler and measuring, so it might be sort of the feet might be in or out. But what you don't want is this or this or this or whatever. And this is part of what will allow that free passage of gravity down through your body. From the side, you're not straight upright, because when you're like this and your shoulders in line with your hips, which is what we would look for in the standing, there's a little bit of your back which is kind of overhanging and threatening to pull you back. So you just tilt forwards a little. Don't bend your back. Again, think of that line from shoulder to hip. Bringing your head and bringing your weight more in between hips and feet. And just trying to let the big muscles of your back and shoulders relax, and perhaps getting an appreciation of how you're supported from within. You're supported by your skeleton and the surrounding tissue, the bones of your feet and legs, pelvis, the spine and the surrounding area, the rib cage, giving shape to your body. So getting away from the feeling that you need to hold yourself up, and instead allowing your center of gravity to drop. And one of the really important outcomes of Sung is this dropping of our center of gravity, the rooting down, which is the sort of antidote, as it were, to problems with stability. If you're inclined to feel a bit wobbly or something like that, lower your center of gravity. The better in line with gravity you are, the more stable you will be. So now just begin to turn your head a little bit from side to side. So Sung leads us into this posture, helps to make us aware of the qualities of the posture, which are summed up in the Chinese term Zhongding, translated as central equilibrium. And this is something that we look to try and maintain through the whole of the practice. And then hands in front of your shoulders. So how we move is going to be important. Notice whether, in some movements at least, you're sort of habitually straining to move. Like, oh, I've got to move my elbows or whatever. Quite natural to do that, especially if at some point maybe you've had an injury to a shoulder or something like that, or some kind of condition that makes movement difficult. Of course, you're going to strain. But one of the things that we look for in Tai Chi, related to this, again, to this quality of Sung, the ability to yield, is to find the path of least resistance and then going forwards. Once we've built up a sense for that in some movements, then that becomes part of our intentionality, our intent. Tai Chi and Qigong are intentional movements. Hands out to your sides, winding your arms around. I think of intent these days as being like what we think of as mind in all its aspects, giving some kind of instruction to the body. And mostly, and especially with familiarity, we say that quality of song. Our bodies are very good at following instructions, finding ways to move. So if your intention is to find the path of the least resistance always, and awareness is always going to be a part of that. But a lot of that will happen quite sort of what I would think of as intuitively. Our bodies respond to the intention. Now bring your hands up, so you're winding up string or cotton. These are movements that both help us to loosen in joints and junctions of our body, but also serve to bring our attention more to those parts. So, see how this feels in your arms, your fingers, your shoulders. Go back the other way. Hands rest. And now tilting forwards, tilting your pelvis forwards and noticing how your head and shoulders follow that movement. Pushing down through your feet to push your hips back. That will bring your head and shoulders up. And then this time, turn just a little. So more of your weight goes towards one leg. Just feel the distinction between one leg and another. And this movement of our weight from one hip to another, or from hips to feet, or whichever way it's going, from foot to foot when we're standing, it's one of the primary driving forces in Tai Chi. And it's something that we want to try and get to an accurate level. And the other way. And then circling around. So feeling your weight now moving from one foot to another, from one foot to one hip, from one hip to another. And that movement, rolling your pelvis around. And the movement of the pelvis, drawing your shoulders and your head around. And then change direction. And come back to the central position. And from there, just take a step out, put the heel down, lower your toes, pull back. Make sure that when your foot is fully down, your knees still a little bit bent. So just learning to measure the step fairly accurately. What does it feel like when your leg is extended like this and then contracting again? Bring the feet parallel, and then on the other side. One more. Okay. Coming back to this central position, hands down by your sides again, palm forwards, combining that rotating movement with the transfer of the weight, the combination, moving your arms in a smooth semicircular position. And then next time you're forwards, keep your hands facing back and fisherman cast the net. Excuse me. Going forwards, shoulders going forwards, drawing your arms through, and as you settle on your feet, your arms spin back. Same thing, the idea going back. So most of the time, your arm is following the movement of your weight, and subsequent movement in your shoulders. Almost like you're training your fingers through water. So fisherman cast the net, and this time you imagine the ball underneath your arms. You can sit back, rolling the ball in towards you. So main driving sort of energy is going to be the transfer of your weight, followed by any movement here in the center of your body and other things you'll feel here, for instance, especially if you imagine it as being quite a heavy ball. I can just do it with one arm, but here my arm could be here. As I go back, maybe my arm straightens a little bit. That extends the muscles, which then also contract, coming back in, and so on and so forth. And you'll begin to notice this. So you know, that quieter mind will be able to observe, and not just to observe, but to discriminate, to work out which are the useful movements, which are the useful things to cultivate, which are the sort of things I would rather get rid of. The next time you come back, feel the expansion in your belly and up into your chest. And that expansion, push your elbows out. This pigeon spreads its wings. Reversing that as you go forward. So that lovely opening and closing in your chest and ribs. Now, keeping your hands above your legs in line with your hips, coming back, turn your hands palm forward. Elbow stays quite bent now. So as you go forward, your hands are pushed away and they curve up. It's this pushing wave. One more time. Drop your hands down to just above your legs. Wrap your fingers into a hollow fist. You should be able to get a finger down easily. Thinking back, turning your hands and pushing forwards. Turning again. Open your fingers in the forward position. Almost like doing the breaststroke. And then back. And in. And pressing forwards again. When we do this, what we've got is a part of a circular rotation in our pelvis, tilting forward, but then coming back. So I suppose the pelvis rotates maybe 25% through the full circle, maybe not that much. So that center part of your body is a very important area and a useful area to focus on. Now this time, turn your hands palm down and turn in that central part of your body, then ease forwards and swing around. So an increasing amount of our focus of our attention is into the center part of our body. Now, changing direction, alternating between clockwise and anti-clockwise. So how your back extends out. So we've got both the horizontal and the vertical rotations in the center, producing the movements. Your arms will just extend slightly, but they're still following your shoulders. Polishing the table. Coming back and just letting your arms rest for a moment. In this position, we can also produce more vertical movements. And there's two ways we can think of this. You can push from your hips, push from your feet, and get this wave-like movement alternating between forwards and backwards. Or you could push down through both at the same time, and the wave will build between both of them and push up. So that's one way we can think of this. Another way we can think of this is that we're about to stand up. And if you're about to stand up, you'll tend to push down through your feet and your hips. So you then do that. And it's nothing like that dramatic. It's just enough to produce a slight sense of lengthening to our back and our spine, and it's a sense of the energy building. So hands in your lap or just above your lap, as though you've got a ball cradled in your arms. Use either of those two ideas to create the upward movement through belly, like a wave coming up underneath your hands and then pressing down again. The advantages of either of those two ways of visualizing the movement, imagining the movement, is that both involve a downward movement. And this is the key principle. There's always in Tai Chi what we would call an opposite movement. And ultimately, there's only one direction that movement can go into, which is downwards, helping to really cultivate that rooting down, the dropping of our center of gravity and the connection to the ground. So now, keeping that going in your legs and your hips, changing the upper body, hands out to your sides, the wild goose. This lovely image of the bird in flight, maybe conveying some kind of quality to the movement. If it doesn't, don't chase after that or think that you're somehow failing, because not every image that we use will work to you, but again, the imagery becomes part of our intention. And then angling forwards just a little bit so that your hands can drop in front of your knees, sit back, and again pushing through hips and feet, parting the clouds. One more time. Following the rhythm of expansion and then contraction. This time the contracting stage, the hands coming down, again hanging from your shoulders. And with the next expansion, one arm pushing up. Like you're going to pluck something soft off the tree. Just wrap your fingers around very loosely. Pull down. Try not to tighten your wrist. And switch your attention to the other side. Same thing. Just trying to be a little bit methodical about this. So that you're aware of the positioning of your hand. Is it a good position? Does it enable you to keep to an extent this process of releasing, of softening? One more on each side. This is dragon plucks the stars from the sky. And then bring your hands around, once again, just slightly above your legs. Push up, feel how your back lengthens. Keep your hands slightly in front of your body. If you pull your hands back, everything will tighten up. And then drop down. And then alternating that with the sideways push. See how the palm of my hand faces outwards here. And again, hands are slightly in front of my body. Notice how the hands come back to this central position. And as we've noted, when we rotate in that center part of the body, the rest of our body responds to that. So again, it's an important and useful point of focus. It's also perhaps the part of the body where we most notice that sense of sinking, of rooting. Traditionally, it's sometimes described as being like the hub of a wheel, because it's at the center of the body, and it enables a sense of connection to all parts of the body. I think that's an important element in Tai Chi that we are able to move freely and smoothly. Come back to this settled position at the end of each stage of the movement. Do one more round of this. This time, you push your hand out. Extend one leg, knees still bent, just rest the heel on the ground and turn slightly towards that leg. Tilt the pelvis forwards and that pushes your hands forward. So you're scooping water up in your arms. Let your hips drop back, bring your head up, and finally elasticity in your arms, drawing your arms over. This is called scooping the sea and looking at the sky. Shoulders go back and then your arms follow, just opening up in the front of your body again. And then from this position, roll your fingers again into a hollow fist. Sit back slightly, push from your hips, angle forwards. Let that movement draw your arms over into grasping the tiger's ears. So your back lengthens slightly, chest opens. This is exaggerated, but it's almost like it's puffing out a bit. And then the elasticity, the tissues in the chest and elsewhere combine. Bring your hand over. So from the side, again, it's exaggerating, but pushing forward through the opening there. And then it's like it does this. This really is very exaggerated. So my posture's going out. These are very subtle changes within our body. Change in size. So lots is going on in our body long before our arms respond. And one of the things that we're trying to do is to maintain the focus of attention on the whole of our body, rather than getting too distracted by our arms. When one part of our body is in motion, the whole body is in motion. This time changing to grasping the tiger's ears. And come back. Give yourself a few moments to once again settle and practice this idea of bringing your attention regularly back to the center of your body, and get the feeling that the center of your body begins to sink through the chair towards the ground. So this becomes the sort of refuge, the reference point. In particular, when I was talking about just drawing back a little bit in your attention, you can't stop thinking. You can only think about not thinking, which that you're still thinking. But you can redirect your thoughts, and that redirection of our attention, not on a permanent basis by any means. We're not ignoring what's going on, but it can stop us feeling overwhelmed by. Now, what we haven't done for a while in this session, hold your hands over your chest. We're going to do the exercise called the Archer. Push your left hand out to the side, and then draw back with your right hand as though you're drawing a bow and arrow. And you can either have your elbow out to the side, or if it's more comfortable, tucked behind here. And you turn your head and you look at the hand, and then let your arms swing across in as smooth a circle as you can, and back to the center. Now bring your right hand in and do the same thing to the right, drawing the bow and releasing the arrow. Hips still sinking down, so not trying to carry too much weight in the upper part of your body. So we can feel the movement, chest, shoulder blades. One more time on each side. So the Archer. And come back to rest. The qualities of this posture, rather than the technical side of it. Stillness, spaciousness, I've already mentioned. Whatever associations you make, and maybe even aware of changes in your breathing and so on. These are all things that we want to try and cultivate in the standing postures. From a structural point of view, they're going to be different, of course, because you're standing, not sitting. But Zhongding, central equilibrium, has the same feel whether seated or standing. So it's worth taking note for a few moments of how this posture lands with you. Now, before we go into standing, once again, just rubbing your hands together, repeating the tapping exercise, starting on your face again. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. And then on the other side. Part of your chest. Down to your belly. And then relax. And to just a little bit of feeling back into your legs, pushing your heels up a few times, sort of pumping the legs really. And then circling around. and back the other way. Okay. And then standing. So I'm going to move my chair out of the way, but as always, sometimes it can be very useful just have the chair next to you so that for some of the exercises, what we're always trying to do is to relax, essentially, to allow gravity to work through the body. That can take a while to develop, and if you're feeling a bit unstable, it can be very difficult to relax. Another way of sort of working with that is to just be quite close to the wall. It won't work for all the movements because you might bump into the wall, but you can do that, or you can do this, so that you've got a certain amount of kind of security there. We're led by two things. We're led by an awareness of structure and by this kind of intuitive intention. And between the two, we build a posture, once again, well rooted down, the center of gravity dropping, and in line with the pull of gravity. So start with your feet hip width apart. You can see the space between my legs, see the background between them. If you have them too close together, it would be like, we were just sitting, chair was a good size. This would be like sitting on a pole. It wouldn't be nearly so comfortable. And just rolling your weight forwards and backwards. So when I go back, eventually this is going to happen. The first thing we want to do, and this again is where, there's a lot of trial and error here. So just having the support of the wall or whatever helps us to do this, because it means that we can experiment a little bit without the annoyance really of sort of constantly, oh, got it wrong again, sort of thing. And remember, what we're looking for is this feeling of central equilibrium. We want this process of sung, the releasing feeling, to work through our body. And if you practice this exercise enough and practice that idea of sort of sung and enough, it becomes very familiar. And after a while, it feels like putting on an old pair of shoes that are really comfortable. You feel that you're arriving in that sort of position. But there's also a technical side. Are my feet in the right direction? We want to feel this line from shoulder to hip to ankle this time. And we want to feel that alignment remains. And we might also notice maybe you're holding your knees stiff or shoulders stiff or something like that. So along with that awareness of the feeling, we also build an awareness of the technical detail. And the posture that we're looking for, remember, it might not be comfortable at the moment. Your body has to condition for it. I'm going to come a bit closer. Is to have your weight slightly forwards in your feet. So your weight focused just behind the ball of each foot. This is a little bit exaggerated. And at the same time, just allowing our knees to soften and our hips to drop back. Once again, a feeling of sitting, just as we did in the chair. And once again, it's this central area that sits. And then let your hips drop a little bit more, bring your hands around and pushing up and pressing down. So once again, this exercise, rooting down, involves a gentle press down to our feet, and then a dropping of our center of gravity. And I think it's probably clearer the significance of the connection to the ground when we're standing and when we're seated. So if you felt it when you were seated, this should come in a relatively straightforward way for you at this point. If it doesn't, don't worry. It requires practice, but rooting is really one of the key concepts in Tai Chi. Change to the wild goose. Okay, now from here, turn one foot out, step forwards with the other foot. Notice again, there's a space between my feet. To demonstrate, if I use these holes, these sticks, that would do. So if I'm a little bit wide, but that would. You see, I've got my feet just on the outside of the sticks. I turn one foot out, I step forwards. I've still got that wide base. If on the other hand I do this, then it's like I'm trying to sort of balance on the pole. Very uncomfortable. So we want to retain that wide step. It can feel a bit unusual because it's perhaps a bit wider than normal, and enough room so that now you can begin to transfer your weight from one foot to another. And ideally, we want to maintain this quality of central equilibrium while we're moving. So again, demonstrate with a longer pole this time. If when I'm standing like this, you imagine this is my center line. When I step forwards here, then as I move, I want it to remain like that. Chances are, though, we do something like this or something like that, we lose that alignment to a degree, and we just want to give ourselves a moment with the weight forwards and a moment with the weight back each time to recover that, to notice that. And this is something that I think is a great benefit that comes from Tai Chi, that we gradually get into the habit of constantly correcting our posture, not in a kind of tedious way, it just becomes quite intuitive. And in that moment, then you can also raise your toes and your heel. More of your weight will settle down until we get to a point where there's hardly any weight at all left in what we would refer to as the empty leg. And that's when we can step in. Remember, we're not trying to balance. We're looking to align. We're looking to drop our center of gravity, to root, to yield to the center of gravity, to not resist the center of gravity. And through all of that, then we've gradually become more stable. And the same thing on the other side. So there's both, again, a kind of what I think of sometimes as a technical side. This is where my feet should be, this is where my shoulders need to be, and so on and so forth. And an intuitive sense, this is how it feels. And both of those link up or become part of our intention. Raising the toes and your heel. Our bodies are good at following our intent. They do it a great deal. We're just trying to make sure that our intention is the correct intention. Stepping in. And then take a few steps forwards or backwards, depending on which way you have the space. Change direction. And just focusing on the simple act of walking. Useful exercise. Now have your right foot forwards and go into the standing version of fisherman castanet. Weight goes forwards, drawing your arms through, weight goes back, drawing your arms through. Nice smooth wave-like movement through your body. We can change the direction of the arms by turning the body. And then we can let the arms swing up a little bit, no higher than the shoulders. And then as we go forwards, they drop down, turn a little bit. And we have this sort of sideways figure of 8 action. Good, and shake out. Same thing with your left foot forward. So start with a few rounds of fisherman castanet, straight forwards and backwards. Change the direction by turning as you go back, just letting your arms follow that movement. So again, the significance of the center part of the body. A little bit clearer, guiding the hands, and then a little bit of expansion in the side. Swing your arms out. Then this time, as you go forwards and your hands come up, bring your back foot in, step forwards, or if it's better to go backwards, that's fine. Taking a few steps, still your arms following, still a part of your attention on that feeling of rooting and the alignment of your body. So the turning in your center and your arms moving doesn't actually make you unstable. And then changing direction. And bringing your feet parallel. You can also do that what I said about sort of using the wall behind you as a sort of safety net, I suppose you'd call it. But also, it's not just safety, it can be quite interesting to have that support. I'm just slightly in front of the wall, and I could do that exercise from side to side like this. And it means I can just hear, for instance, I can take a moment and think, well, am I stable? Or am I about to fall over and want to try and just settle down here? So there's all sorts of ways that you can vary these movements. But for now, it's coming back to your chair. Finishing with the seated posture again, but remembering that the same qualities are present in both the seated and the standing, really letting your weight sink into the chair. Have a little bit of your weight forwards if you can, so your feet are supporting part of your body. That line from shoulder to hip, not rigidly straight, but they're very much in line with each other. A bit of your back supporting the front of your body, so not tight in your belly or your chest. Let your hands drop down, and the closing exercise, we push out. Embrace tiger, bringing your hands around as though you're going to hold the ball against your chest. Return to the mountain, coming in and back down, and just for a moment, coming back into sort of the ideal posture, as it were, settling down, and then pushing out again. Trying as much as possible to maintain those various qualities that you've identified, but also recognizing that the very act of pushing your arms out and moving is likely to disrupt those a little, but that we can again find a way to return and sort of touch base again. One more time. And let your hands come to rest, feel the weight of your arms on your shoulders. You can close your eyes if you wish for a few moments. Just sit with this feeling of equilibrium, the stillness, the quietness. Take a couple of slow, gentle breaths to finish. And then just open your eyes. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. Always. So if you have any questions, do feel free to email me at some point, and I'll see if I can answer them. Bye-bye for now.